Welcome to Say Net to Life. I'm Nectaria Kladitis, a peak performance energy coach, and together with Andreas Batakis, we help entrepreneurs reach their full potential and achieve more success and abundance in their lives.
Difference in communication is really the difference between expectations and agreements.
So expectations in contrast with agreements. We have two types of expectations. Do you want to talk about them?
I do. So we have the expectations that we have in our head. So for example, you wake up every day and you expect your spouse or your partner to make you breakfast. You expect them to have the coffee ready when you wake up. And that expectation may just be in your head because they did it some time ago, and now you expect them to do it every single day. So if one day they don't do it, you go crazy. You're like, what's wrong with you? Why didn't you make me coffee today? Right? You're not asking if something happened to the other person, if they were busy with something, if they're preoccupied, because you have this thing in your head, that expectation, which is a one-way street thing. It's not really communication. It's just something that you expect to happen that puts pressure on the other party to do it.
The other one is expectation that the other person knows, but the other person hasn't agreed to the expectation. So if I know that my husband wants a coffee, and he probably does, but I haven't agreed to making him coffee every day, well, then that's an expectation, but there's no agreement in place. So again, doesn't work.
Also, I want you to consider this. I'm looking you straight in the eye now, and I'm telling you, I expect you to finish this project and to make this task happen by tomorrow, 10 o'clock in the morning. That's what I expect from you. Even the fact that I'm expressing this as an expectation, how do you feel? How does it feel here? Don't you feel a little bit of a knot in your stomach when I say that I expect you to do something? Because it's basically applying, no matter how you see it, when you do that to another person, you're actually applying pressure.
So what you're saying is expectations tend to be toxic. They ruin people's chances of a good relationship. It's not, people don't like expectations. People especially don't like expectations that we have in our head and the other person has no idea, what's happening. So they cause a whole lot of resentment, they cause a lot of stress, anxiety, and they're toxic. You can never have a good relationship with people expecting things from other people without there have been previous communication or an agreement in place. And if there has been previous a talk in place and there's no agreement with that expectation, then again, it doesn't work. So for instance, let's take it business-wise.
Okay.
So we have an organization and we have leaders. The leader sends an email to the employees saying, I want this report by the end of Friday. He sent the email, he let the employee know that he needs a report by Friday. Did he get the report? Most likely he didn't, because he's not aware of what's going on. If the employee is okay, if he has other obligations, what's going on with the employee. He didn't get a confirmation, he didn't get an agreement in place. So Friday comes along, there's no report ready. The client is very upset, the boss is very upset, and the employee just doesn't understand what's happening. And so the business is all going downhill. And the leader, the boss, feels that my employees aren't doing a good job. My clientele is suffering. What's going on? And then as a coach, you go in and you say, okay, so what happened? And what happened was that, okay, you sent an email saying that you're expecting this report. That means absolutely nothing. It's a one-sided expectation that was communicated, but there wasn't an agreement in place. So a way to get around that and to have ease in communication is by using agreements. And so many times what you can do to solve this problem is you can call the employee in and ask him, I need this report in by Friday. Is that feasible for you? The employee will tell you, yes, no, I'm short-staffed, I'm crunched in time, I have another 5 projects that I'm doing. So you're like, okay, I need it by Friday. What can we do for you to get it in by Friday? And there's many options. There's many things the employee may say. He may say, I need another, I'm understaffed, I need another person to help me. He may say, push it back until Monday. Whatever it is, they will agree upon something that is mutually beneficial to both. That way, there's no miscommunication. They have an agreement. So when there's an agreement in place, everything works like clockwork, because a man, any human being, is true to their word. Even criminals, they're true to their word. People don't like expectations. What they do like is agreements.
And keeping their promises, right?
That's the number one thing, keeping a promise.
Keeping a promise, especially when you have agreed upon that. So it's a very interesting situation, because in life and in business, if you discuss with your kids, with your partner, and you say, hey, let's talk about this. Let's make an agreement, shall we? Is it okay for you to make my coffee every morning and I'll be making you breakfast, or our breakfast? Or is it okay for us to agree that you're going to make sure that you have made your bed before you go to school every day?
Oh, I like that example with the bed. So with our kids, do you want to say the example with the
No,
bed?
you said.
So our son will wake up, he'll make his bed. Our daughter will wake up and she's always late. She's never made her bed. And it's like, why haven't you made your bed? It's almost 10 to 8. Your friends are at the door. They're waiting to walk to school. You haven't made your bed. And she just looks at us. The reason is that we have this expectation, because one child makes his bed. Mm-hmm. We have the expectation in our head that she will make her bed every day. She has never, we have communicated, to be honest, she has never agreed to this. So she doesn't do her bed. And we're thinking, oh, there's something wrong with the child, or there's something wrong with us, or there's something wrong with the parenting. It's simply she has not agreed to our expectations. So in order to resolve this issue, we sit down and we have an agreement. And we ask her, can you make your bed every morning? And she says, Mom, I usually have a hard time waking up, so I don't know if it's possible for me to make my bed. And then you can find other ways to resolve knowing these facts. So you can go back and forth and negotiate until you come up with an agreement. So would it be possible for her to wake up 10 minutes earlier for her to make her bed? And if she agrees, then we have an agreement, and then our expectation has turned into agreement, which resolves the issue.
Excellent. That was a great example. And also I can take it, like we can take it to business as well, and say that by creating agreements and communicating agreements and making them happen, you avoid the storytelling that goes in your head. Because we all have stories that we write all the time in our heads about any given situation. So it's like, why isn't my child doing this? And why isn't my child doing that? And it's me, it's on me, it's her, whatever, right? So we create those stories. But when you have an agreement, you can avoid the stories just by going back to the agreement. Okay, let's talk about this. It didn't happen. Maybe we need to adjust. Maybe this is not working out. The initial agreement is not working out. So let's adjust what we have agreed upon, adjust the parameters so it can be tweaked, so it can actually work out. So you just revisit it. You don't go back into your head and creating all these stories. And I'll give you a real life example from the past few days, which has to do with a lot of communication. I had a client on the real estate side of the business that they were to send a deposit, but the deposit was sent in parts for different reasons, because of bank holidays and so on. And there was going to be a delay. Now, I could have said from one aspect that, you know what, That's it. We had agreed that the deposit is going to arrive at this time. And if it doesn't arrive, not my problem to communicate it. I've done my part and all that. But that's not the situation here. There was a very clear indication and communication from my client to me that the agreement is not going to work out that we had because of the bank holiday, and there's going to be a delay for a part of the deposit. So what I did was I picked up that communication. I said, that's fair enough. And I communicated to the other side that we were negotiating with. And I said, listen, I know that we agreed about this, but because of this delay, it's going to arrive on Tuesday instead of Monday. Is that okay with you? So I created an agreement and a communication. And today, when I woke up in the morning, I actually got an even a thank you very much for all the hard work and an effort and your efforts for making this happen from all sides, from my clients, from my fellow professionals, from their clients, because the communication and the adjustment of the agreement is what's making it work. And it's very pleasant. There is no stress. There is no worry around it because everyone knows what's going on every step of the way when you have made an agreement, especially when you revisit the agreement if you're seeing that the part of it is not working out. Does this make sense?
So basically what you're saying is agreements are very creative. They're creative because you get to design it with the other person and you can negotiate it. You can recreate it. It's not, as long as you're in communication, you can be very creative. Expectations, on the other hand, they're one-sided and so what can happen with an expectation? The other person can either do it or not do it. So if the other person does it, then that's great, but you're not happily surprised. You're still worried. You're still anxious because it's like, okay, I expected you to do it, so it's all okay now. If they don't do it, even worse. So now they're resentful towards you. They don't feel good and it causes bad relationships. So the great way to resolve all this is to simply create agreements. So we actually, and the biggest thing here is that we say, this happens a lot in business. A boss will say, well, I'm not happy with my HR manager. I'm not happy with my marketing manager. I expected this, and they're not following through. But if you ask them the same thing about their family life, everybody will tell you the same thing. Oh, I'm not happy with my husband. He doesn't put out the trash every day. Oh, I'm not happy with my kid. They don't do their beds. Maybe it's even worse in the family. And it goes all around. The missing ingredient is they're not making agreements. Everybody has expectations on their head. They either go through or they don't. Nothing is resolved. We still feel very bad. As soon as you have agreements and you don't have expectations and you don't expect anything from anyone, only good things can happen because you're not waiting for anything in return.
Most importantly, you take charge. You don't expect other people to create the agreements. If they do, that's fantastic. If they don't, you take charge and create the agreements. You take charge and monitor those agreements and see if they're going to happen. And you adjust them, and it takes the stress out of your life, takes the stress out of your business. And if you want to be a skeptic, and if you want to play devil's advocate, and you'll say, now what is this? What is this ongoing communication business? I'm a professional. They're professionals. I said we're going to do it. I said that they expected to do it. It's their job. They should do it. That's that. Well, let me tell you this. I'll give you a visual example. In life and in business, there is always connections, right? We're all part of a chain. We're working with someone else, whether it's our clients, whether it's a fellow professional that we're collaborating on something. So it's like we are connected by something that is tangible, but at the same time is very fragile. So when we don't want to communicate, when we don't want to make an agreement, and we're just standing our ground and we're saying, and we're pushing back and we're saying, no, I expected this to happen. I told you I wanted to happen, and it should happen.
That's just an opportunity to blame people when things don't go right. So you're looking for a way to keep you safe and blame other people.
So when you break the chain, the collaboration breaks down and nothing happens, and it's not good for anybody. So communication is key, and it's actually fun.
The question here is it actually possible to have no expectations of anyone at any time and only have agreements?
It is. As long as you make it in an intention throughout your day that you only want to create agreements and delete the idea of an expectation. Just delete it.
So whatever you have to do in work, in life, with your family, with other people, with co-workers, when you have no expectations, only good things can happen. When you have agreements, that's when things can be communicated properly and everything can work out. So people that you care about and your personal relationships, because we have all these expectations, they cause us to feel, and we don't see them being done, they cause us to feel anxious, depressed, and we're like, oh, if I can't be happy at home, how am I going to be happy in the workplace? Because you're having all these problems at home and then you're carrying them into the workplace. You're not having the proper agreements in place at home either. And it should start from the home. It should start from your life, because when you have proper agreements in place everywhere, everything works out all around.
It all goes back to the fact that the way that you show up anywhere is the way that you show up everywhere. So it's unlikely that you're going to be a great entrepreneur and at the same time a happy entrepreneur and very successful entrepreneur, and at the same time you have terrible relationships with people. Like, it's just not going to happen. The way you are in one place is the way that you are everywhere. Because that's you. That is just you. That's how I am. That's how Nectaria is, right?
So another example that I thought of, for this can be in the workplace or it can be at home. You're having a meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and one person is always late, or you're at home and your spouse or your kids are always late for dinner. You have this expectation of them in your head, or maybe has been communicated, of the employee to always be on time in the meetings and of your family to always be home for dinner. What happens if they come? Great. If they don't come, we're all very upset and everybody's disappointed. So what can you do to enable communications? You can set an agreement, and you can tell your coworkers, your family, dinner time's at 6, the meeting's at 6. Is it possible for you to be on time? Why? Because you are invaluable to my company or to our family, and we'd like to be together. Now, your family member or your coworker may come back to you and tell you, I'd love to be there at 6, or I'd love to be home for dinner at 6, but I have another meeting beforehand and just the time frame will not permit me to be on time. And then you go back and renegotiate the time. You can shift things around. Until you come to an agreement. If you don't have an agreement and you just expect everybody to be in their position at 6 p.m. and they're not there, usually hell breaks loose. And you're thinking, oh, it's not my fault. They know that we have dinner at 6, or they know that the meeting is at 6. Why haven't they shown up? And everything just shatters, right? So, and from the other person's perspective, he has never agreed to anything. He tries his best, but many times he can't make it. So if you don't communicate it and have an agreement amongst yourselves, nothing will work.
You heard it in Sesame Street, didn't you?
You did?
Yeah, they kept saying communication. That little word that connects everything, communication. I feel that we have shared a lot. I would love to hear, no matter if you're watching this live or if you're watching this as a replay, I would love to see your comments, what you came up, how are you feeling about all these things that we're sharing, and even if you want to try it out for one day and come back to us and let us know how it worked out for you.
So I just like to say one more thing. It's kind of like a recap about the expectations. When they don't occur, we have a lot of arguments and judgments for the other human being, and no human being wants to have expectations or to be expected to do something, because especially when it's a superior person towards an inferior person, a boss towards an employee, a parent towards a child, it causes a whole bunch of feelings to be present, which leads to arguments and judgments of the other people. Like many people get knots in their stomach. It's not a great place to be. And this can all be flipped around as soon as we have the proper agreements in place. Because if you're expecting things to happen, honestly, you're being a coward. You're being a coward for not getting the agreement and just expecting things.
Things don't just happen. We make them happen. So intentionally, it's very important for everyone, all of us, to make the decision and make things happen. Not by creating stories in our head, but by taking action, putting agreements in place so that we have a clear results and clear communication throughout. And that is what helps us be happier every day in our lives, and not just wait for something else that's going to happen, right? This is where satisfaction daily comes from. I think that was beautiful that you did that recap.
You know what? I thought of one, a big thing that is very common in marriages. Many people, they get married expecting the other person to change.
Oh, yeah.
And then they're like, okay, let's get married. And then I think that I will change him or he will change. This can never be done. And that's how everything ends up. That's why we have many divorced people. So the more we perform agreements and are able to communicate agreements effectively and get the other person's agreement instead of having everything in our head, the better it is all around. And now, if the other person has agreed and doesn't come through to his word, then you will have to sit down and have an agreement in place that the other person will agree to follow through his agreements. But in reality, would you want to be around a person who says something and can't be trusted? That's a red flag.
Can we make an agreement?
Sure. About what?
The agreement is that we're going to keep on growing together. And when you grow, you do change. So I just want us to have this agreement. We have it already in place. It's an unspoken one, but let's make it in front of everyone, that we will continue to grow together and change together. That's our agreement. Okay. And support each other through this growth on our path of life.
So in our family, I agree. So in our family, we have many agreements in place after we were aware of this concept, because many people don't have this awareness. But as soon as you do become aware, you can take action. So we weren't aware of this for the longest time. As soon as we were aware about expectations and agreements, family life changed, which means work life changed, everything changed. I think that's all for now. Don't forget that if you're watching live, comment live. If you're watching the replay, #replay, Rocky has been very good today.
She has. She's going to get a treat. You know that. She's going to get one. You're not going to get a treat.
She doesn't really like us talking to the computer.
But we're not talking to the computer. We're talking to all our friends that are watching us here, and we're very grateful to have you with us.
So let us know what you think of today's training. Let us know if you have any questions. Let us know if there's other topics that you'd be interested in learning about. And yeah, I think that's all for today. Bye for now.
Have a wonderful rest of your day. Oh, and of course, remember, say yes to life every day.
Bye.